Wait. Okay, wait. In the video, they have this family room. It's about 3 minutes and 7 seconds in. It's a bedroom, right? It's this bedroom. It's a little fireplace off to the side. And up on the ceiling, a good 10 to 12 feet in the air, is the TV hanging off the ceiling. It's like, well, we don't want to put it in front of our big, giant, sliding glass door. Okay, I can get that. But are you serious? Way up on the frickin' ceiling?
You know how you go to the theater and it's packed, right? You got to sit in the front row because it's the only seat left.
Yeah, that's what this would be like.
Just do that every single day.
Welcome to the Archispeak podcast, the podcast for architects by architects, where we discuss all things about architecture. I'm Neil Pan. Each episode, Evan Troxel, Cormac Phelan, and me invite you in on the conversation as we talk about everything in the profession, both the good and the bad. Maybe you're considering a career in architecture, you're still in school, or you've been around the block more times than you'd like to admit. Join us in the studio as we gather around the water cooler and talk about this profession we call architecture. It's time for some Archispeak.
I died in South Africa, only outlined my body in Tiffany's blue. When I died, I drove right and swam with the dolphins and Lisa Frank and you.
Are you ready, Cormac? Okay. Welcome to episode 29 of the Archispeak podcast. I'm Neil Pan.
I'm Evan Troxel.
And I'm Cormac Phelan.
And Evan, do we have some friends of the show to announce?
We do. We have 4 fabulous new friends of the show this week, and it's been a great week for donations on the Archispeak podcast, so thanks to everybody who donated. The first one is Beverly Pryor of HMC Architects, and she donated $10 to the cause, and she said that the show has kept her entertained on her flight from San Francisco down to Ontario, and we thank her for listening. Thanks, Beverly. The next is Chris Grant, who donated $50, new friend of the show and longtime listener. Chris Grant works with architects, so I think he's listening to the show to try to get some insight into the psychology of the crazy world of architecture. And he's an amazing 3D artist, and you can check out his work at christophergrant.com. Thanks, Chris, for your donation. We really appreciate it. The next new friend of the show is Niraj Chander, donated $20. Niraj says that he loves listening to the podcast and he wanted to reach out to help keep it going. He loves what he does, and if he wasn't practicing his craft, he'd be trying to figure out how to practice his craft. So thanks, Niraj. We really appreciate your donation. And finally, but not least, is Angelo Marasco of Cadence Studio out of Colorado. And he's doing some very cool stuff. He wrote a very cool note to the show, and we'll probably be talking about that in a future episode. But again, Angelo Marasco donated $20, and we appreciate it so much. If you'd like to get your name read on the show, you can head over to archispeakpodcast.com/donate, where you can make a donation, help keep the show going. We appreciate every dollar, and we would love to read your name on the show. All right, so that is it for new friends of the show this week.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome week.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's great. So this episode, we're just we kind of stumbled on something, or at least I just did, and so we're going to just go for it. We're going to talk about some house plans, and specifically, we're going to start with this Dream Home Source.
Never heard of
Cormac. Never heard of it. Cormac has. He's been talking about it. So,
actually, it was something that was posted, and Evan helped me out because you just reposted it on Google Plus.
Yeah, it was on Big Time Small Firm. I'd heard about this a couple months ago, and I watched this video, and we talked about this a while back. But I just thought, we talked a little bit about this last week, so I think we were messaging and stuff during the week about this link to a video by Hanley Wood, right? And so I asked on Google Plus, where'd that come from? And Jess Stafford, one of our friends of our show, he posted the link back up, and there's a pretty good discussion going on there on Big Time Small Firm, the Google Plus community, about this as well. But so I messaged you guys the video earlier this week, and it's a gem. So
Yeah.
tell Neil, you're just watching it. What do you think?
Wow. Well,
We should probably give a little background here, I guess.
I was going to say,
Well, go ahead.
before we
ahead.
get the opinion, let's kind of tell them exactly what the video was about, so that we at least put it in context.
Well, I mean, how this all kind of started was we were talking about the AIA convention, right? This coming, Chicago 2014. And you've been having conversations with other people about that, and you were saying Hanley Wood. And so I said, well, do you know about Hanley Wood? Do you know what, because they published the magazine Architect, and everyone who's a member of the AIA gets that for free, right?
Yep. For the low price of about $400 of your fees,
Depending on what state you live in.
True.
And
More
so,
like
yeah.
800 here
There's
in California.
You've got a good link about that, right, Neil, on your website?
Yeah. I'll put a link into the show notes for that one.
Yeah, you guys, everyone
can
should
do
check
that.
out Neil's why he's no longer a member of the AIA on his website. So there will be a link in the show notes. We should probably mention real quick, if you go to archispeakpodcast.com/episodes/29, you can see the show notes for this episode, where there will be links to the things that we talk about. You can also sign up to just have those delivered right to your email box. If you go on any page on our site, basically on the right-hand side, there's a little sign-up form. And you're just going to get show notes with all the links emailed to you first thing Monday morning, so they're waiting for you so you can follow along on the podcast. And a lot of people have signed up for that. It's pretty fun. So check that out if you have a minute. But yeah, Neil's got a great article about why he's no longer a member of the AIA on his site. But back to Hanley Wood. So yeah, they published the magazine Architect, right? And so no problem.
And Residential Architect.
No problem there, right? So they're offering a service to all architects throughout the entire United States for that. And at the same time, they've got this video, and we should put the link to that in the show notes too, where they're selling home plans, right? So why don't you, Cormac, what did you see in this video?
Well, the thing that I loved most about it is they gave you the great selling points that a lot of architects would do too, is talking about how they can kind of work with you to get that plan that is right for them, build them their dream home and all that other stuff, and you go through it, and it all sounds great.
Okay, wait, stop right there. Don't give away the ending. Everybody go to archispeakpodcast.com/episodes/29 and watch the video. Pause the podcast right now. Watch the video. Okay? Spoiler alert, because we're going to get into what happens in that video. So check it out.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Thanks for watching that video, because now you're probably, if you're an architectural professional, burning just like we were when at the very end they basically come back around and they say, well, and we can customize these plans, we can give you an extra bedroom, we can stretch this bathroom, we can do this, we can do
anything you desire,
all for possibly double the cost, which is half of what you would pay an architect. You're like, wait,
No. It was double the cost of what you would pay them for your
the
house
stock plan.
for your stock
Right.
plan. So they said $2,000 for customization.
Yeah.
And then, so they said that would be twice as much as what you'd pay for the stock plan. So I'm assuming it's $1,000 for the stock plan. So for $3,000, take it away, Cormac.
You can get a fully customized plan that will save, that they can turn around in 2 weeks, and it will save you time, money, and headaches from dealing with those pesky architects. Now, and the I guess the dripping irony of it all is that here is a site and service selling customized house plans.
Okay, so that is dreamhomesource.com, right?
That is basically, at the end of this video, kind of taking a shot at why you would not use an architect, why it's better for you to use their home plan service than to use an architect from a company who makes a boatload of cash off of marketing and selling their magazines to architects.
Oh no, the AIA is subsidizing
Yeah, I'm sure.
their magazine,
Right.
right? So they're using architects' fees or associate fees,
Yes.
right? Those that are not licensed that pay AIA dues, they're using those fees to subsidize these magazines and this company to basically cut our knees off.
Where's my
Cut us off
WTF
at the
stamp?
knees.
Yeah, my WTF stamp is just bleeding with red ink right now.
But, and they'll say, but no, guys. What we're doing is we're selling these plans so that when that person gets it back to whatever municipality that they're going to build this house in, that municipality will say, but you have to have these stamped by an architect.
Well, it depends.
So
right?
what's
Yeah.
wrong with that?
It depends.
That's true. In fact, actually, you don't have to have it stamped in, say, if I were to go to build a house around the Rockville, Maryland area, and I go into the permitting department for Montgomery County, Maryland. They do require a stamp, but it can be from
Could be an engineer.
It could be an engineer
Right.
or an architect, whoever's going to assume the liability of that floor plan.
Right.
And then there's a few other things that they require, like a geotechnical survey or a grading plan. Actually, sorry, a grading plan.
Yep.
Only a grading plan. So you can completely circumvent the system and just go straight to an engineer, have them sign it, and most likely, a guy who's, a structural engineer who works for a bigger firm who kind of does this on the side and never uses his license. So here's his chance. We'll probably charge you a couple $100 for it.
Yeah. Well, at least, I would think.
And
You're going to get charged a lot more for an architect to do it than you would an engineer, I would think.
oh, sure, because any responsible architect would, if they were going to even consider reviewing these plans and putting their stamp on it, they would have to make sure that it meets their basic requirements.
Yeah.
And because it's their liability. You're the second you stamp it, you're stamping your liability, assuming everything is now on you.
Yeah. I'm wondering, though, even then, if you're even, it depends on the state, but there's even, it's illegal to do that in a lot of states. You can't even sign and seal someone else's drawings. So, yes, some architects may do that, but usually the law, well, I shouldn't say usually, but in some places the law is that you can only seal drawings that are your own. Or you're under your direct supervision. So it depends on where you are, and every state's a little bit different there. But yeah, you could. I mean, you could charge. At that point, why wouldn't that architect just charge you probably more than, because it takes a lot of time. You got to go through all that stuff. You have to coordinate it all.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's a mess.
Well, Neil, let me ask you this, because you've worked with production home builders before.
Yes, I have.
So they sell all of these different, home plans and stuff for developments, I'm sure, that they're developing and stuff like that. What do they do to get a set of drawings signed and sealed?
In my experience in the production housing industry, a lot of houses, well, there's two approaches that most home builders take. One is, have we built this house before? And, can we make some modifications to it to make it adapt or fit to a particular lot size for a community? And if it's been a successful house, they like to use it. Sometimes they'll re-elevate them. And other
That
times they'll
sounds
just
fancy.
well, it's production housing. You slap
I'd
a
like to
different
read it.
you slap a different sort of elevation style onto the front,
Yeah.
and some that oftentimes includes different window sizes and configurations. But it's basically you manipulate the pieces in the front. Sometimes you pop something out or back in a couple of feet or a foot, and you make it work. Anyway, it's not. There's multiple levels of production housing. I've seen production housing that have sold for literally multi-millions of dollars, in some Southern California residential areas. So that's to a point where it's almost like a custom home. But it is production. I mean, there's multiple houses of the same plan in a particular development. But anyway, so if they have a plan that they can use, they usually come to an architect that specializes in this type of work, which a couple of firms I used to work for did that type of work. And, there is a lot of design involved in that. And I know a lot of people don't really think much about it, but, quite frankly, the houses and or the projects I've worked on probably affect a whole lot more people than most of your custom residential architects ever deal with in their entire careers. Because the houses I've worked on, literally thousands of people are living in. And so, it has a big effect. But anyway, I'll get off the soapbox here. Just the point is that they'll either come to you with their own plans that you have to refresh. And quite honestly, that happens a lot. It does also happen where they'll come to you and they'll need a design. Hey, we need something that fits on this type of lot. And usually that's driven by the municipalities. They're looking for a certain type of product for their city and or site. And you have to make it work. And so you have to design something from scratch. Builders don't like to pay for that because it's more expensive, but they realize the only way to get a project done, you have to do that. And that happens a lot in California, especially in the Bay Area where I live, San Francisco Bay Area. It's really hard to just pull a house from Texas or Arizona or some other Midwestern town and bring it here to California and put it up into the Bay Area. Most municipalities just won't stand for that because it's too plain, and you really have to do a whole lot more to make a house work here than you do in other parts of the country. So, it's a little bit different. But this, I've never had a developer come to us and say, hey, we bought these plans off a website like we're talking about here, Dream Home Source, and, we need you to stamp these and make it happen. That I've never, in 20 years of working in this business and working for production developers, that's never happened because they want to own the houses. I was looking through their website here, the frequently asked questions, and one of the things is you don't own the rights to modify these plans beyond what they've given you or make a certain number of copies. And so, you don't own these houses. And the developers that I've worked for,
Well, you
they
don't
own
own the plans to the house, right?
Yes.
You don't mean they don't own the house.
Yes, I'm sorry. You don't own the plans, and a lot of builders like to use the same plans over. As the home building industry is nationalized, 20 to 30 years ago, there were small home builders all across the country, and over the last 30 years, most of them, I shouldn't say most of them, I'm generalizing, but many of them have been purchased by the big builders. And so the big builders have become huge. The Pulte's and other the KB have just become these huge conglomerate because what they've done is they've gone to smaller areas and bought them out, and then now they become it's a Richmond American Home instead of it was Bob's Small Builder. Well, now Bob's Small Builder's been, absorbed by these big builders. But they own their own plans, and so they start with that. But where this site really gets back to is, in fact, I had a client recently, the land purchase didn't go through, so it didn't happen, but, they were looking to buy a lot and put a house on it, a total custom home. And, what this site is doing is saying, oh, you don't need an architect for that. Just pay us $1,000 and poof, 2 weeks later, you have a set of plans.
Yeah.
And it's like, really? I don't know about other areas, but that would never fly here.
Yeah. Well, think about it. I mean, this gets down to what people are comfortable with, right? Mm-hmm. And because of the way that, and I can really only speak to people in the United States, the way that people are used to shopping for things, they lump architecture in with those things. And so they're very comfortable shopping through a magazine or through a website, and they're dreaming, right? Oh man, that looks awesome. I would have never thought of that. I mean, to me, this is a level above what they are capable of thinking of when it comes to houses. And so this is super fun for your average Joe to look through these magazines and dream. And honestly, I think a lot of the reason why our industry is falling short is because we don't share in this manner. And those people they're not comfortable hiring an architect and paying to dream by the hour when they can flip through a magazine for $3 or $5 or a website for free and just sit down and have that fun conversation with their family about what they want to do in a house. That, if they're serious about building, they're having these conversations. And who are we to stand in their way or to say, hey, you should really be hiring an architect for that? I mean,
there is one thing, what you're going there, Evan, is that there's another site called House, and Zillow Digs is another one where they really promoting architecture and design and showing great photographs. They invite professionals to have a site on their site and showcase their work. And what's cool about that, and it's kind of where you're going, is it's fun to go look at that stuff.
Heck
and
yeah.
I go look at it as a professional and go, hey, I use it as a tool, actually, for my clients to say, hey, it used to be go look through some magazines, clip out things that you like. Now it's like, hey, search on the web, go to House, search bathroom.
Save a Pinterest board and start collecting, right?
Exactly, yeah. And that's fantastic. And you could do something like that with this site, but what's different here is that they're saying, hey, you don't need that person, you don't need this architect, you can have it. And I think that the problem I have with this, several problems, but one of them is, when I sit down to talk to a new client, I'm trying to solve a problem. And I'm trying to get them to tell me what their problem is,
right.
Especially if, more like when I'm doing a remodel. But even if I'm doing a custom home, and this one I was working on a little bit last year that ended up not going forward. But, it was like they had very specific things that they wanted. And, maybe these plans, maybe they could work. I shouldn't say they couldn't. But, most times when the client's looking for a custom house, they're looking for a custom house. They want it to meet their needs. And that's what they're coming to us for. If you're just buying this and saying, here, go build this, maybe you're going to get what you want.
Yeah.
Maybe not, or you're going to spend a lot of time customizing it down the road, because I think the people that are looking at this and buying these plans, they can't read a set of plans. They don't even know what they're buying, and they don't have any idea that how big a room is or how small it might be. And I think they're going to be surprised.
Yeah, but to me, these are the same people. It's everyone. It's people who buy cars, and that's the biggest thing they've bought, or they bought a house before. And honestly, the difference is, you said it. Architects solve problems, or they make the space fit the family, right? They solve their functional issues, but people aren't used to that. They're used to buying Toyota Camrys, right? And it's the Volkswagen. It's the car for the people. It is the car for all the people. And that's what they're used to. They're used to buying the thing that everybody likes. And I think where we're really falling short, and one of the reasons, I mean, Neil, you can probably have a little bit of insight into this, is when I worked for Apple retail, it was drilled into you. When someone comes into our store or purchases something, it is the start of the relationship. Where if you go anywhere else, it is the end of the relationship. The transaction is the end. And when you're buying a house plan from Hanley Wood, that is the end of the relationship. And they are very clear with that. They say, don't come to us if you have any problems, right? And architects can solve that problem, and it is our job to tell everybody about that. It is, when you come to an architect, it is the beginning of a relationship. And I know Mark LePage is very good about saying this at entrearchitect.com. Our clients come back. We have relationships with them. It is a multi-year, it is a decade-long, it is a lifetime-long relationship that we have with our clients. And they call us for lots of little things beyond that initial call. And I think that is a thing where we can really differentiate what we do. It is the beginning of a relationship. We are here to help you from here on out. You've partnered with us, and the partnership does not last just a certain amount of time. It's from now on. And yes, we're professionals, right? And we do bill for that kind of stuff because we're offering our expertise, but more importantly, it's not where the relationship ends. You're not on your own. We're going to get through this together. We're going to hold your hand through this whole thing.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's exactly, where these websites, and not just this Dream Home Source, but all of these other plan home, not the builder sites, because that's a slightly different one, but all these plan home sites, you buy the plan, you get the plan, and now you're on your own.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that happen. I mean, we were talking about, if you get it, now it's got to be signed and sealed. It's got to fit the site. It's got to, you've got to do all of these other things. These are things that aren't sold as a service through these websites. They're just, I don't care, I don't care how you get it on the site. Now you've just got a plan to maybe fit your site.
Yeah.
And so, they're kind of left scratching their head saying, okay, well, what do I do now?
Or maybe it doesn't fit at all.
It might not fit at all.
Yeah.
And they're left scratching their head trying to figure out exactly what it is that, they need to do next. And that's not, that's just part of many of the services that an actual architect will be providing them when, they start the journey of trying to build their own custom home.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary for a lot of people, right? I mean, it's their life savings.
Well, you were saying that, it's easy for them to kind of just, one-stop shop. They see something glossy in the magazines that they're like, ooh, I like that. And then, they sit around with the family and they're like, yeah, I like something like that. And, so they click buy and move on.
Yeah.
But, what we're failing to do is get out there and tell them that that's not really the most responsible way of custom home buying or building your dream home shopping, because there are the many other factors and things that go into designing and building a custom home, or just any, big home, little home, whatever. There's all of those other little factors that take into consideration, and you started to talk about a lot of those, the different things about the relationship. And what we're failing to do is tap the market to let everybody know, hey, we're here to help.
Yeah.
The reason that they go to these is they're like, well, I was really worried about, an architect costing so much. Or, well, they're unapproachable because they wear black and fancy glasses, and
hey,
they just scare me. Well, I mean, you kind of get, it's
No,
it's
I get
like
it.
Those,
it's why people go to CarMax instead of a dealer, right?
Exactly.
They go to
Exactly.
CarMax because it's a no haggle price,
Right.
and versus going to a dealer where, okay, everybody goes into the dealer thinking the dealer's in control, right? But actually, you're the one in control. And there's lots of success stories out there about people who go into a dealer and hold to their guns and they work out an amazing deal because they're not going to be the ones who are taken advantage of that day. But lots more people are comfortable going to CarMax, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no fear there, right? This is what
Right,
it is.
right.
It's like the least path of resistance to get to what I want, which is a new car,
Well, one of the things, I'm just looking at this website a little more in detail as we talk, and one of the fundamental things that you first have to start with is, will the house fit on the site, right? And as I've looked at 3 different ones now, not one of them shows an overall dimension. So it's like you're looking at this house. It shows you, here's your square footage. Has some. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, I'm mistaken. It does say width and depth. It does have. It doesn't show dimensions, but it says a width and a depth. So I guess it gives you some overalls, but you don't really know much more than that, I guess.
Yeah.
Well,
but it's still a little frustrating. But I've experienced these types of phone calls where it's like, what's your price? And it's like, what's your price to add? I literally had this. I think I might have talked about it before, but it's like, I want to add 100 square feet to my house. How much are you going to charge me? It's like, I don't know anything about the project. I know nothing. But what's frustrating about that is that I'm not a house plan guy. I don't sell a product. I sell a service. And that's where I think architects need to really differentiate themselves. Is we're not selling a product, and we've kind of hinted around at this a little bit tonight, but it's a service, and we service our clients, and it's what you were talking about, Evan, with the relationship. That relationship is a service that we provide, and there's value to that service, and it goes way beyond what you can purchase from these sites that are basically selling a product, and when you buy it, the relationship ends, and you're left hanging out here with nothing.
Yeah.
Well, I think everybody's said this throughout the different podcasts of an experience that they've had. And, I remember one that Evan was talking about where, you went in to a project and they kind of had all these preconceived notions of exactly what they sort of wanted. And after everything was said and done, they got something so much better than they could ever imagine that it ended up being a part of their marketing and branding. And you're right. That's what we do is we end up, we take this journey with them and help them understand, the whole process, pitfalls and everything else. We're there to help guide them through, construction process, the whole thing. And that's where we're failing, is that people are coming in, and it's a very typical American thing. It's how much are you going to cost? What do I get for my service?
You always start there. Yeah.
But we always start with how much is it going to cost? Yeah. And they're not looking. They're not looking for, what, they want. They just want the end result. They don't fully concept.
Yeah.
They don't have the full concept of what that journey is going to be. They want the end result, just like the Camry. If I go to CarMax, this is exactly what it's going to cost me.
Right.
Boom, I walk out with the keys to my Camry.
Yep.
And that's what they're looking at. Boom, I want to walk out with the keys to my house.
As painless as possible, right?
As painless as possible. Yeah. And the thing about, architecture is there's nothing painless about it. It's painful.
Well, but working with an architect doesn't have to be painful.
Exactly, and that's where I was going with it. Is that rather everybody has this preconceived notion that architects are hard to work with, and it's really just the opposite. Architects are there to take the pain out of what can be an extremely exhausting, challenging process. Anytime somebody tries to, remodel their home and do an addition or something bigger like a school or something like that, it's a huge undertaking. And there are so many different challenges to get to that end result where somebody's handing you the keys to your new house or your new school or whatever. And we're educated to understand all of those challenges and bring it to the table and ease the client's pains. Whereas, going out and buying that stock house plan, that's just the beginning. I mean, okay, what you've done is you've loaded the gun, but you haven't taught them how to shoot. You're just so now they're going to just go random, and that's a horrible analogy, but I mean, you see where I'm going with this. It's just you've given them one small piece of the puzzle,
right?
And then you're telling them to actually go and solve it.
All right, let me turn this on its head a little bit. What about architects selling their own plans, their own designs online?
Well, I was going to...
How different is that?
Well, I was going to bring up the custom modular homes that I've done in the past. I mean, modular home, the whole point to all of that is that we knew we were going to kind of lose our shirt on the first one or two, but these were return plans. But the thing that we always wanted, the thing that we always hoped and dreamed that we were going to be able to do is that we were going to be able to be involved with every one of them. And for the ones that for all of the custom modular homes that we did, we were involved with every single solitary one of them. We cited it. We, made any modifications that it needed to, whatever we needed to do to make the site work, but we were taking the responsibility. We were guiding the client. So it was essentially the same service that we would do a one-off. We would do it, with, some of our modular homes and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not that these sites aren't terrible, because, you're getting a product. But the thing is that whereas, again, let's go back to the whole, whereas when you're coming to me or you're coming to you or coming to Evan, you're buying a service that has a product as the end result. Where you're going to sites like this, you're buying the product and that's it. And now you don't know what your next step is to getting that end result. I mean, you're only getting a set of plans. Well, a set of plans are about as useful as a roll of toilet paper when that's all you have is just a set of plans and no knowledge of what to do with them.
Yeah, no, I don't think that I don't have a problem with people buying sets of plans. And I mean, the real problem with the Hanley Wood thing is that they publish the magazine for the AIA and they're telling people that they don't need architects, right? I mean, that's that's the real problem here with this. Because I honestly think that architects could do a lot of good in the world by offering what they do as a product, just so people get it, right? Just so it's easy for people to understand. There's a lot of architects who offer stock home plans, in quotes.
Oh, yeah.
Who go through the whole process with clients, and they teach them what they need to know, and they make it enjoyable, and they take the fear out of it for people, which is really a great service that they're offering, even though they make the client feel like they're buying a product, which is what you're talking about.
Well, one of the things that we had hoped, before the recession, is to do almost simply that. Is, there are there's a firm that we knew of down south, LRK, Looney Rick's Kiss, great, nice firm. And they do a lot of high-end residential work. They do a lot of commercial work and stuff. But they also offer house plans. But they're selling the house plans as a bundle package with the service. So it's not that you're just going and buying that plan. It's you're buying you could be buying that, preconceived idea of the plan. Well, now you're buying the service from us to help you take it from the conceptual plan that you see on the website to the finished product, and we're there to guide you through that whole process.
Yeah.
Same thing with a lot of new urbanist communities. They sell stock plans, but they also sell the service of like the town architect. The town architect's there to kind of help guide them through the process of getting it from the conceptual piece of paper that they see to an end product. I mean, we worked with a developer to kind of help create some basic stock plans that they would be purchasing that along with the services of the town architect. It has always been a bundle package with the service.
Yeah. Neil, you're going to like this. Because I'm looking at a floor plan right now of the title of the page says Blueprints. All right. Ooh. And it's on eplans.com, which is one of the links to get away from the Handley page. And it's funny that it's called Blueprints. But, again, they're just speaking to what people know. And I'm looking at this mess of a floor plan with a glass floor made out of glass blocks so you can see the floor below. I'm looking at the contemporary, in quotes, plan. So the vaulted great room and the glass floor and the open to below and the plant shelf and the vaulted nook and the kind of chipped off edge of the kitchen countertop so it looks very natural. There's a spa, there's a gas grill, there's 3 fireplaces, there's lots of hangers in the walk-in closets, and that's all on level 1. And,
a lot of stuff.
And so to me, that's exactly it. This is a checklist. And the reason I said, Neil, you're going to like this, is because to me, this is how people shop for personal computers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is walking into Best Buy, and this thing has everything I need. And nobody is thinking when they're looking at this stuff, and I'm totally preaching to the choir. I get it. No one is thinking what their experience is going to be.
Well, the 2 comments about that. First off, did you scroll to the bottom of the ePlans website?
Let me go back.
It's the same site. It's Handley Wood.
Yeah. No, I know.
With everything. It's the same site, just rebadged.
Everything's kind of reconfigured on the page so it doesn't look exactly the same. And
exactly.
They've got links to the social media, and they've got links to house, and they've got a toll-free number that you can call, and there's quotes that talk about how awesome they are. But the thing that I want to focus on is how there are a lot of people in this world who shop by checklists. They want the tech specs. They want to make sure that everything that they want is just checked off the list. And I think the thing that architects offer, and again, I'm preaching to the choir here. It's all that stuff. One thing leads to another. It's all interrelated. It's about the experience. It's about how you live. It's about why you live. It's actually more about why you live than how you live. There's a lot of things there going on where people are just buying based on that checklist, and I think that these sites are catering directly to that. They get it. Like they're totally aiming for those customers. And I think something that we do kind of poorly, maybe we could do better, is we try to solve people's specific problems. And so maybe we should talk a little bit about how we can actually reach those people a little bit better, how architects can reach those people. Because I know you had mentioned earlier this week about talking about social media. People have been asking about how, maybe this plays into that a little bit.
Well, I don't know. Does social media help us reach those people that are checklist buyers? I'm not sure it can. Maybe it can, but
totally can.
You think so?
Absolutely. But go ahead.
Well, I don't know, because I've got a couple of different Twitter accounts, and one is for my business and one is more my personal use. And I tweet architecture on both, about architecture subjects on both, but I try and keep my business one, more to other types of things. And, I don't have a lot of followers on that one. And quite honestly, I don't think there's any clients. I mean, maybe there are some clients that are looking at that Twitter feed. I mean, it's linked on my business website. But I'm not so sure. I do try and repost some very interesting articles that I find on House and on a few other websites that are more geared towards my type of clients. The small person that wants to do a remodel, or maybe a small custom home or something. So I'm tweeting, interesting things about, what do you do about your yard, or what do you do about, your office space, and how do you make it more efficient or effective as an office space, or any type of room in your house. And so I do tweet those types of things to try and reach clients, and maybe they're seeing that, maybe not. I haven't had anybody that's hired me or contacted me mention it. Now, that being said, I have had several clients contact me by saying, I searched for an architect and your website came up. I liked the images that you have on the page, and I decided to call you.
Yeah.
That has worked. So any architects out there that, are thinking, will that portion of quote unquote social media work for me? I'd say definitely yes. But will things like, tweeting about it, or, I do have a Facebook page for my professional site as well. Again, there's a billion people on Facebook. I couldn't tell you if any of my clients are paying any attention to my Facebook account or my Facebook page. So I'm not sure that's a good way to do that. I have had people contact me through House. So really, if I was to make any suggestion about social media for architects, I would say go to where your potential clients' eyeballs, and we're all going to have different potential clients. For me, I have found House is a good resource for that. Zillow Digs has been a more recent one that has been, I haven't had anybody contact me through that, but I've noticed a lot of people liking some of the imagery that from my projects that I put there. But you would think with 1 billion people on Facebook, I don't see people searching for architects on Facebook.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'll try to sum it up, because it's a huge thing. And a lot of people ask the question, and I'll tell you, like, what I see is I see people start social media in quotes, right? Because it's this big unknown amoeba, and they give up after a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And honestly, everybody, this is the long game. You have to play the long game.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to share your experiences. And it is not about your portfolio. It is about building trust. You have to become the food. I said this before. You have to be the Food Network. You have to be the chef who gives away your recipes. Do you think that they're worried that some other chef is stealing their recipes? Hell no, they're not. They are not worried about that one bit, because it's their recipe. They're the ones giving it. And architects need to think the same way. If you share what you know, people will trust what you say, because you continue to deliver. And it's not only going to help your business, it's going to help architecture. This is a big deal that we have to get over. This is not about showing what you can do. It's about sharing your stories, because people want to be a part of those stories.
But Mr. Tropsel,
yeah.
If I give my stuff away, won't they go to them instead of me?
Isn't that okay?
That's what people are feeling. It's just like, but I don't want to give away.
It's funny because architects are more afraid than the clients are.
Exactly. I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, because the more you give away, the more you are recognized as an expert, a person to go to. That knowledge base.
Give. And you're playing the long game. You're not going to see, someone is not going to call you out of the blue. I remember when I was doing websites in the late 90s, and I did a website for this guy, and I went in to collect my money, and he said, "You know what? I'm not paying you." I said, "What are you talking about? I did this whole website." He said, "No one's come to my website. No one's walked in through my doors because of this website." He just immediately thought, because he had a website, that everybody was going to come visit it, and therefore everyone was going to come into his shop. And it's like, okay, this is just the beginning of the story. I mean, and this is, people still think like that. People still think, I'm putting stuff out there. How come nothing's happening for me? And they give up, right? But honestly, you have stories to tell, and people want to be a part of one of those stories one day. They honestly do. They want to be part of a success story. And that's where we can really succeed in what we do. We can help people become a part of a story.
I hate to bring this up as it's almost a trivial comparison, but I like watching American Pickers. And one of the things that they like to talk about most is
they just love to find people and talk.
Yeah,
right?
I mean but the thing is that they love this story.
Yeah.
They love the knowledge that they get from these people.
They get more money for the crap that they sell because there's an amazing story attached to it.
Exactly.
Totally great analogy.
All right. Well, I thought it was going to be trivial.
No, it's awesome. It's the same reason people buy race cars at an auction for $1 million. Because there's a story attached to that thing. It's the same thing. Yeah, go ahead with your trivial story. I don't know.
Well, it's just like you've got, and I'm gonna go off on the car tangent because we're car guys, but I was watching now that I've got HD channels and all this other stuff. There's this great channel called Velocity, and there was this one show, and he takes his cars to the auction and all that other stuff, and he went out and there's this one particular episode that this guy bought a Porsche, really low miles and everything else, and it was a very it was sort of a rare it was rare to be in its condition for its age, and it sold, and he was really disappointed that it didn't sell as higher than the other one, one that was very similar. The one that was very similar to his had a story. It had been in the garage of a couple of famous actors. It's been raced. It's had all of these other things. So the value was its story.
Yeah, absolutely.
The value was the experience that car had. Other than the car that, the exact same car with much less, mileage and things like that.
The better car, right?
Was just, the better car was just a car.
Yeah. Well,
but this was a story.
What's that TV show where they go, people line up for hours and hours and they bring their antique roadshow, right?
Oh, yeah, Antique Roadshow.
And they show up with a Civil War sword, right? And that's worth $5. And then the other guy's got one, 3 weeks later, and it's worth $500,000 because of the story behind it. It's the same stuff.
This was the blade that brought down, Stonewall Jackson.
Yeah, people want to be a part of that. I mean, honestly, that's where we need to help people write their own stories, and we need to help people tell their stories and think about real architecture that we still look at today. Cormac, you visited Falling Water. I mean, it's all about the story and the setting and what they accomplished and how they pushed the limits of construction and how it's falling apart and how they're sagging. But people love to talk about that stuff, even though half of the camp who looks at that house looks at it as a failure because it's not holding up like he said it would, versus the other half who's like, it's an iconic thing that no one's ever going to forget. I mean, that's what architecture can do.
And the thing that captivated me most about Falling Water was the stories that they told about, how Frank Lloyd Wright came in, and they were like, it's just like they were standing on the banks of this river, and they were saying, hey, this is where we want the house because we want to capture these views. And Frank was like, forget the views. I want the house in that river, and he was just, and in all of the different stories of how that house came about, how that house impacted the Europeans' view on American modernism, where before that house they thought we were just, we were the commoners who didn't understand, true international style and modernism and stuff. And then here, Frank comes in and he throws down the gauntlet. He's like, here it is. What do you got? And, it was the stories that made that house more than what it really is just bricks and mortar,
Yep. Yep.
And I guess in a way that's what we're coming full circle back around to, all of these e-plan websites and stuff like that, is that you can have a house, but it's the, it's the story, it's the journey, it's everything else that, architects can kind of help conceptualize greater than just, click, here it is, now what do I do kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, back to the social media thing, Neil, I think something that maybe people want to hear about is, a lot of people are looking for a recipe on how do I do this? But I think this gets back to the story thing. I mean, social media started with the blogs, and it should be about you telling your stories. Your website shouldn't be a portfolio for other architects to look at. You should be telling the stories that you want to get out.
Let me give you an example of a story and where it can go. And I'm going to reference, it's funny you mentioned about recipes, because there's a movie called Julie and Julia.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have ever seen it.
It's a good movie.
It's actually a very good movie, but very entertaining. But it was started because this woman, Julie, started a blog as a challenge to basically cook every recipe in Julia Child's first book, right? So, where did this lead? It started with a simple blog, and suddenly it grew and grew. It became this huge thing.
How did that happen?
They made a freaking movie out of it, right? And so,
it just started with one person reading it, right? Actually, it just started with one person writing it. I mean,
one person writing it.
It's amazing the way that these things catch fire.
I guess so. What we're trying to get at is that, to be successful in social media, you've got to tell a story.
You've got to work.
You've got to work.
Yep.
It has to be. It is a lot of work, and it can happen, but it takes time. There is a long game involved, and hey, maybe eventually they make a movie about it.
And my advice is you never look at how many people are showing up.
Right.
You pick a person who you write to, and you write for that person, and you write and you write and you write. And maybe that person's you. There's a lot of other people in this world who are just like you, whether you know it or not. And they have the same interests as you do. And you can teach all of these people something. You've got something to teach. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is putting in the hours, putting in the work, and you just make it. You make time for it and you do it. It sounds silly, but I see so many people give up after such a short amount of time because it is a lot of work and because they aren't seeing results. But really, the results are coming, but they're just not anywhere nearby when you first start out. They're just not, because you're in a giant ocean.
Well, it's the results are the experience that's gained by it all, in that you get better, you keep honing it, and it just becomes something more. But you got to actually do it. You're right. I mean, you've got to actually do it and, work at it.
Yeah.
Hate to use the analogy of, the fresh out of college kids that are just like, I expected architecture to be completely different than this. I mean, why aren't we designing? Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? We went to architecture school. It takes time. You got to build that. In social media is absolutely the same thing. I think that's definitely something for a topic for later on, and maybe even, with a couple of guests or two, is talk about, social media as a tool for the architect.
I think it's a good idea.
All right. Well, with that, if you have questions or comments, visit our website at archispeakpodcast.com, where you'll find links to our individual Twitter accounts and the Archispeak Podcast Facebook page, another social media link. And there you can join in on our conversation as well and add your 2 cents about what you think about the topics we've talked about tonight. Or you can also call the Archispeak Podcast line at 415-484-8496 and leave us a message. We're hoping some more people do that. We've had some people threaten they will. Hasn't happened yet.
Tell us your story.
That's right. Share your story. We want to hear it.
Yep. All right.
And with that, stay subscribed and thanks for listening.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
I used to shy away from the stampede. I'd hibernate, hunker down in my heart at all. To get good at the game, I had to grease up my riot gear, and that craving came when you crossed along, yeah, when you came along. Triple dog dared me, turn the sprinklers on, barefoot in the driveway, baby. Platform dancing, form like a crazy man. Someone who proudly tumbled, diving face first, bad with chances, raving birthday soon. Oh baby girl, triple dog dared me, turn the sprinklers on, barefoot in the driveway, baby. I get naked. What do I got for my birthday suit? My little piece of creation. I'm gonna shake my mom, I gave mom, I gave mom, I gave mom to say thank you. What would I have what I want to do? I'm a blessed relation. I'm gonna shake, I got love for you, love for you, love for you, love for you. I got love for you. I got love for you. I got love for you. I used to shy away from the limelight. I tucked my face, uptight my sleeping bag to build a better base. I had to block my war paint right. I'm a better place since you made me upright. Lovers never fight. Triple dog dared me, turn the sprinklers on, barefoot in the driveway, baby. Platform dancing, form like a crazy fan. Someone who proudly tumbled, diving face first, fat with chances, braving birthday soon. Oh baby girl, triple dog dared me, turn the sprinklers on, barefoot in the driveway, baby. I get naked. What have I got for my birthday suit? My little piece of creation. I'm gonna shake my mom, I gave mom, I gave mom, I gave mom to say thank you. What would I have what I want to do? I'm a blessed relation. I'm gonna shake, I got love for you, love for you, love for you, love for you. Get naked. What have I got for my birthday suit? My little piece of creation. I'm gonna shake my mom, I gave mom, I gave mom, I gave mom to say thank you. What would I have what I want to do? I'm a blessed relation. I'm gonna shake, I got love for you, love for you, love for you, love for you. I got love for you. It's ridiculous how much love for you.